her facial expressions, mobility, whatever, like she just does like visual comedy so well.
Yeah.
Interestingly, in all of the fan fiction that I write about Zheng that happens in a hypothetical season 3, I just like swap things around where she is captain. The other thing that I write about a lot that happens to her in like a hypothetical season 3 is that...
Hello and welcome. Today we're talking about everyone's favorite pirate queen, Zheng Yixu. And on the pod this week is Randy Roy, aka Bong Bing Bong on AO3. Randy is a fic writer who is currently in the process of writing a garlic soup western, loosely based on the film Desperado. He's also organized 4 OFMD themed drag shows in Australia, which have included drag numbers as Zheng. And Randy, welcome.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
I'm so excited that you're here because you were on our Roach episode, and if you guys haven't checked out the Roach episode, it's like one of our best because of Randy. All the Roach knowledge and all the Roach analysis, it was just amazing. And I know this Zheng episode is going to be as great. And also Kelly, aka Enjoy the Party on Instagram, and also Enjoy the Party on Blue Sky, is here. Say hello, Kelly.
Hello.
Kelly is mainly a fan artist working on an OFMD comic she's spent way too long talking about and not enough time doing about. She's also the creator and most proud of her OFMD event, #KissFang Weekend, an event she hopes to bring back again in the new year. She regrets not making a Christmas-themed weekend where Fang is Santa. Oh my God. Kelly, that would be so cute and wholesome.
I would if you do a Fang episode, I'm not going to throw my hat in that ring, but I will throw my hat in that ring. I adore all of the Asian characters on our
We need
Fang.
To do a Fang episode. Let's do it. Let's plan it.
I mean, there's only lore for him that I've had to come up with because he's such a mystery. Canonically, he's such a mystery.
That leads to the best episodes. Like Roach doesn't have a whole lot. So a lot of it comes from everyone giving their theories on backstory and stuff, which makes it so cool and fun for fan fiction. Also on the show is Molly, aka Smurfs Moo on Blue Sky. Molly was on our recent Be Gay Do Crime episode about fandoms fighting fascism and is starting her own pod called Unfreak Me Out, a podcast where her American historian friend Patrick helps give historical context to these maddening times. Look for Molly to post more on this in her account. The first few episodes are coming in January. Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So you've recorded already?
Yeah, we've recorded the first episode and we're really close to recording the second episode. And the first episode is about the immigrant vote in the U.S. and how immigrants voted this election, and then talking about the history of the way immigrants have voted in the U.S. And the second episode is about billionaires.
About what? Say that again.
The second episode is about billionaires.
Oh, billionaires. Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is going to be really fun.
Lots of guillotines, I hope, are in the graphic of that episode.
Yeah, I'm boning up on the French Revolution for sure.
Nice.
We're going to talk about the Gilded Age, I think. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, fun times. Really fun.
The rise of folk heroes coming out.
Yeah.
And doing some Robin Hood things, I think, is going to be really too, hopefully. But let's get into our favorite folk heroes, pirate folk heroes. I'm Carly Heath, and let's kick things off with the first question that we always ask at the beginning of this thing. What's the most gay pirate thing that's happened to you this week, Randy? Or not this week, but whenever, recently.
Well, this week, Irene, who was on the Roach episode with me, have gotten really into Conclave, which is the new Pope thriller that's out.
I love that movie.
That we found keeps happening whenever we watch something new is that we'll just pick a character and be like, this is just Izzy Hands again. Or we'll ship 2 characters and then realize that it's just the Rizzy dynamic all over again. So we've gotten really into Conclave.
Wait. So who in Conclave is Izzy? the nun?
The main character, because he's told, by his boss, the Pope, that he's a manager and that he should manage. And then his entire story arc is him kind of like grappling with not essentially knowing what this Pope, who's always like 8 moves ahead of everybody else, is actually like trying to orchestrate. And we're like, yeah, that's just Izzy all over again.
I love that. I would be so excited to read a based on that movie. It is like a soapy film. It is beautifully shot. It is masterfully acted. It's actually really funny. And it weirdly kind of makes the Catholic Church look a little better than it actually is. I say this as a Catholic.
The Catholics are real mad about it.
Oh, I know. And they're just a bunch of they're just people like to get mad about stuff. We took my mom, who was raised in the Catholic Church, and she fucking loved it. She loved it. She loved the ending, loved the whole thing. I won't spoil it, but just really, it's definitely a beautiful film, and it's a fascinating study on what the Catholic Church could become if we ever, got our heads out of our asses. But it's also just a really fun soapy drama to get into, and it's beautifully shot.
Is it gay?
I describe it as like Mean Girls, but in the Vatican.
Yeah. And it's, the main character is Ray Fiennes. And his acting is beautiful and so sensitive and lovely in this. But it's presented very seriously, but they make a lot of comedy out of just sort of the way that it's just trying to imagine how the cardinals and the people who come together in a conclave, which nobody really knows what those actually are, what they really look like from the inside when they're trying to choose a new pope. And so obviously it's definitely going to be really soapy, and there's going to be backstabbing, and it's fascinating.
Important question. Is it gay?
In the book, it is.
Yeah, there's elements. Just watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will say that the main character is canonically bisexual in the book, and I'm just like running with that.
Yeah.
Nice. Kelly, what's the most gay pirate thing that's happened to you recently?
My gay pirate moment was I really felt like Roach running through all of the markets that I had to run through this past week, looking for various things that I need to get in a certain amount of time before I have to go run for the bus. So in a way, that made me feel very gay pirate.
Nice. I love it. And Molly, what's the most gay pirate thing that's happened to you recently?
Well, I've been in and out ever since I started watching. Our show inspired so many people to do stuff that they maybe wanted to do for years but never really tried. Midlife crisis, just like go for it. You know what I mean? And so the thing that this show inspired me to do was to try stand-up comedy. Yeah, because I want to learn how to write comedy, and I didn't know how to write a joke, so I figured I'll just go to an open mic night. And the open mic night that they have every week here is at a place called the Pirate Tavern and E-Vape Lounge.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And it was like, I went there and it was like, I know, the Pirate Tavern and E-Vape Lounge. It's really cute. But it's like totally like a modern day fic about like someone going in to try stand-up comedy. And it's like a very gay pirate theme.
Oh my God.
All of the interiors has tons of pirate stuff going on. They have a unicorn tip jar. And it wasn't deliberately, designed after a show, but it's just like it has a Kraken bathroom.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So I'll send more pictures when I can. But it was just like, it was like, because I was doing this and because of my love for the show, and then I just walked into this place and it's just like coded "Our flag means death" across the board. And some of the bartenders were really cool, and there's a lot of queer people there. And some of them have loved the show too. But yeah, I'm going to start trying to like get little stickers or something of like Ed Teach and try to stick it over like the pictures they have of the reel. Just put a little bit of our show in there too.
It's been so long since I've done an open mic, but that's one of my goals in 2025 is to get back into it. So if you ever want to meet over Zoom and workshop some jokes,
I would love that. Yeah.
Open invitation anytime.
And I'm just excited to try.
Excellent.
But hopefully I will be one day.
Excellent. So my gay pirate thing happened today. I have big time Disney princess syndrome. It's that thing where you think any animal will love you because your vibes are impeccable. So I go up to animals and I pet every single one of them, right? So there's a dog behind a fence, going crazy, barking. And so I do classic Disney princess thing. I stick my hand in there because I'm like, you'll love me. We'll pet each other. And the dog bit bit me.
No, oh no, did
I'm
we
so
do
shocked.
that? Oh.
A vicious dog actually bit me. I couldn't
You were
believe
like,
it.
but I was wearing white. It was a total power move. What are you doing? So sweet. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah, it didn't break the skin, but I
Good.
was
Good.
shocked. And I
Well,
was
Jenkins rules then. So it kind of gets you, but doesn't always get you completely.
And I was glad the owner wasn't there, because then the poor owner would think that I'm going to sue them or something. And I'm like, no, your dog could rip my face off. I will not sue you. I am an animal person. So let's start with, who is our beloved Zheng? What do we envision as her backstory? And Randy, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, okay. So I think I kind of envision her in here's the thing is that like her name, you know, Zheng Yisou necessarily means, you know, like wife of Zheng Yi. So like technically by using that name for her, she has like a terrible ex out there somewhere that she has
This
still
show.
kind of like used the name from. But the thing is, like, I feel like that's kind of a power move as well, especially since like these days we all know who Zheng Yusou is, but like I don't know that we really talk about Zheng Yi ever. Like so she's got his name and sort of like made a name for herself as a pirate over that.
There's Widow Bonnet parallels there a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, my thing about her is that she is the gentleman pirate that Steed kind of like imagines that he is. She's actually made, because, you know, you see her negotiating and, you know, she'll sit down and talk with the people that she's trying to like conquer and stuff like that. And she'll be like, yeah, you can join me. Like, let's pop open some champagne or you can die. Like, you know, that's our negotiation. Like, awesome, guys. And I think she's really kind of like managed to weaponize that form of like engagement to essentially like negate the need to, you know, go into fighting unless it's absolutely necessary. And I'm like, yeah, like she's everything Steed like kind of wishes that he was.
Yeah.
Backstory.
Well, I was going to say, would you say that what she's engaging in is like a form of passive aggression or massive aggression, or is she using a different quality than what Steed's kind of superpower is?
She's using like actual people skills.
Yeah.
Like I'm quite critical of Steed like as a leader, and also like in terms of like the framing of the show as well, I don't necessarily love the fact that he's kind of blindly followed towards the end, despite not really showing like great leadership skills. Like, why is he still captain? But back onto Zheng, I love her relationship with Auntie as well. I think we get glimpses into the kind of relationship that they have that I think is really typical of a lot of situations with Asian parents, but then also like based on people that I've spoken to, like Polynesian parenting as well, because, you know, the actress that plays Auntie is Samoan, I think. And I think they did a really good job just with like a few lines of hinting that there was that thing of like, you can never please like your Asian mom. You know, the way that affection is kind of shown in those situations is really closed off or like shown in ways that I think a lot of the time Asian kids find difficult to reconcile, especially like in the diaspora with what they see, like the relationships to the parents of their friends and stuff. So I was like, that little acknowledgement in that last episode was really cool to me, because I'm like, oh, okay, that gives us some backstory into like what their relationship is like. But then also it's obvious that they really care for each other as well, and that Auntie's like very protective of her and also protective of like her name and her reputation. So from that, I'm kind of like, I think there was like a backstory there where Auntie kind of helped her build that, you know, pirate empire and was very much like a mentor to her, and, you know, someone who really like pushed her and like encouraged her and was kind of like that person behind the queen.
Ooh, it almost makes me think if there were to ever be scenes with Izzy and Auntie together, what would those scenes be like? Randy's like, I've written those.
I particularly love Izzy like being a fan of is it Zheng or
yeah, it's
Zheng,
so it's more like
it's
a J. Yeah.
Okay. I'm adopted, for those on the internet. I'm Asian, but I am specifically Chinese. but I am adopted. And so a lot of the Asian, like Chinese culture, especially, I don't know a lot about, and I will defer to Randy about. But one of them is like, I remember like there was like the pronunciation of Zheng's name going around and being, I'm definitely not going to get it right consistently on this podcast right now because I have been calling her Zheng forever. So
That's fine.
I've been calling her Zheng, which I thought that that's the way she pronounced her name in the show.
Yeah.
I was watching it today, and she does say it, but she says it so quickly. I think she says it in like one of those moments where she's talking to Steed and Olu about like when they're walking to the captain that she's trying to like get to surrender to her. She says something like, and they're always like, Zheng, like, what are we doing here? And I'm like, wait, is that like, so I think it's like, I think the show calls her Zheng. I think a lot of the crew calls her that. I'm not, but it is like for the record, it is Zheng. Is that closer, Randy?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it is similar to how like people with Chinese names kind of like navigate their life, like, you know, outside of Chinese speaking countries. If you can't pronounce it, if your mouth is like not accustomed to like making those sounds, then like you can't pronounce it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And so, yeah, like I think it's fine to defer to the show where everyone calls her Zheng because like that's how it would happen in real life as well. And it's not like you're calling her something incorrect. It's just that, you know, you don't speak Chinese and your mouth doesn't really work that way. So it's the closest.
Right. And so people are using their closest approximation. Yeah. I think
I just want to call her the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's important to me specifically that I call her the right name.
Is it Zheng?
Yeah, it's Zheng.
Yeah, with like a J, ZH is a J sound, I think.
Yeah.
And so I wrote down to kind of help me out, Jung. Is that kind of close?
Yeah, it's more like a Zheng. So I think
with like a Z in the, I think it's kind of like when you're singing and they tell you to think of a sound, but then sing a different, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like thinking something, but then you're saying something else. But I think Zheng.
Yeah, it is like
close.
that. But I think the like romanization of it is closer to like a J than it is like a Z.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know if Zheng spoke Cantonese or Mandarin or?
She, in the show, and this was like a thing that I was like about, is that she says her name like in Mandarin, and that's kind of like the only like non-English that she speaks. And I do know that Rubo is like a Mandarin speaker, but Zheng was from Guangdong, which is like, you know, Canton, and would have spoken Cantonese because like she was Cantonese.
I was looking for that thread that you posted on Twitter about that. I was looking for that for like 20 minutes today and I could not find it. So I am so glad that you said it. I was really interested to talk to Randy today just because I think like an Australian Asian perspective, I mean, specifically Chinese is, and I am also Chinese, is an interesting view because I think that American representation politics is different. And so I'm going to be honest, mostly because I'm always very yelly and honest. I actually don't like the auntie Zheng relationship as much. I really like the beginning moments. I think that's really cool. I'm always in between this idea of speaking the way that I wanted the show to be and how the show is. And so I'm always of two brains whenever I talk about this show. And so like I always want to specify where I am. In my mind, I think her and Auntie are more like friends, and I think Auntie has that relationship for sure, for parent reasons, but also because she is just naturally older. But I do think also that the show wanted us to think of them as an Ed and an Izzy. I think that is also part of it. Like she is being compared to Steed for sure, because she is, quote, we could argue the better gentleman pirate. But I also think that the show is trying to be like, see, this is mom and daughter. Izzy and Ed, they are son and dad. So I think that they were really trying to hammer that that relationship home in a way that like they never did with like Steed and Buttons.
And that's what you don't like about the relationship?
I don't like it for that reason. I also disagree with their own reading of Ed and Izzy, which I don't think I'm alone in that. I think the father-son relationship is a little
not correct.
Yeah. I will also say that I think that I come at it from a very jaded perspective because I'm used to that being kind of the only story that is told in Asian American media here in the US. It's almost always a disapproving parent and an Asian child who just wants to live. God, please leave me alone. And it's usually over a partner or a boy or like being gay or, you know, all of that stuff. And so I think that, like, I will say part of my bias against it is having it as an Asian American. And then also on top of that, we're getting really into it. On top of that, I can't really say that I experience Asian American. This is hard. This is very nuanced. And I don't know why I'm going into this, but I also feel that I don't entirely understand the Asian American experience of this having an Asian parent, because I don't. I have a white mom and she's great, but she's not that like cultural. I was not raised in the culture. And so I do know that there are also things that like I wouldn't recognize within the two of them as characters that I think Asian folks do hold very dear, and that's
funny to me because
so
yeah, and I'm a white girl from the Midwest, and I'm very Irish. We're very, very Irish, and I absolutely relate to the idea of having a mom that is very forceful and trying to get you to be a certain way, and how that can be really restrictive. So it's funny because like I relate to that.
Because I agree with you. I have an Irish mother.
I just happen to have one of those
as
moms.
well. But I don't relate to it in the way that I think, like, culturally, I think a lot of Asian people and Polynesian people relate to Zheng and Auntie. So I want to put all of my comments that I make about the two of them and that relationship into that.
I just love to hear Randy respond to that.
I just want to say that, like, American media is so pervasive that I don't actually think that, like, me being Australian necessarily, like, is that different in terms of, like, the cultural, like, I guess, like, zeitgeist of, like, Asian diaspora, like, stories. But I think something that I wanted, like, that you reminded me of is the fact that Zheng, to me, kind of exists in, like, two versions, kind of like you, like the version that we saw in the show and then the, like, version that exists in my head as well. That is kind of like what I've kind of gained from looking at what we were given in the show. And I think her character to me was very much like in the first few episodes that we saw her, I was very excited about the character and I was like, where is this going to go? And I thought it was kind of cool that we had, you know, a familiar dynamic with her and Auntie, but I think it was also like different enough from that dynamic that I've seen in like Asian media that I've been like, oh, this is going to go somewhere. And then the version of Zheng at the end where, you know, everything kind of got simplified down and boiled into, you know.
No, you have it exactly.
Great. Like
a reasonable relationship of like, this is, you know, and which I could argue also like that. I did love that part of it. Like the fact that like Auntie was constantly ribbing her and being like, you know, you have a ship to run and you're falling head over heels over this guy. Ignore him, please. And then like, especially like the I told you so moment, like at the end. And then in, I feel like 7 and 8, we had to like speed run Auntie falling in love with Olu too, which isn't a hard thing to do, but like, you know, I think like it kind of, that part did feel like rushed. And I think that's where a lot of my ire toward the show, I love season 2. We wouldn't have gotten Zheng or Archie. Yeah. But a lot of my ire comes at the last 2 episodes. I mean, okay, I feel that they could have researched her a little more.
I would have loved them to know enough about Chinese culture to know that giving a clock to someone is like incredible slight. Like it's considered very, very bad luck.
Oh, wow.
And there's absolutely no way that they would have kept clocks on board the ship.
Oh,
like
wow.
If someone gave them that as a gift, they would have been like, absolutely not, get them overboard. And I think that to me was like a really big sign that not enough research was done like culturally into writing Zheng as a character, because that whole like final plot just would not have existed if you like asked a Chinese person like about it.
Wow. That's a fascinating, what's the origin of that bad luck? Do you know anything about it?
I think it's something like to do with like time running out, or like the word for like clock is similar to like another word that's like bad luck, like death or something like that.
That happens a lot,
But you
I
just
hear.
like, you don't give Chinese people like a clock as a gift. That's like a big no-no.
Wow. That's good to know for everyone listening who is not Chinese and who has a Chinese friend. And you're like, ooh, look at this watch. I'm going to give them as a birthday present. I love it. And that's a no-no.
Yeah. So just like watching that, and like, I think it is very much like that kind of rushed nature of those last few episodes. I was like, wow, they really just kind of were like moving this along.
I think Zheng and Olu would have made a really good captain and first mate. I wrote a bunch of notes while I was watching the episodes today, and half of them wound up being about Olu, because of course they were. That's why I got into the show, is because I saw, I don't know, a screen capture or something, and it was Lucius and Olu, and I was like, these are my characters, they're mine. And I fell in love with Olu immediately. I fell in love with him. And so when Zheng came in, when Zheng came in, I just like I remember like thinking, I'm like, oh, she's me. This is the thing, right?
Oh, I love that.
I mean, I do feel like so similar to her just as a person. And I think one of my favorite things that Zheng says to him in episode 2 is that the first thing that she says that he's smart. And I think that's because she's incredibly perceptive, except when it comes to herself. I love that. I love that she can't, like, that she has the ability to be like, I know that this man is going to underestimate me, but also I need to be sweet and I need to be nice and I need to be kind. I think a lot of her gentlemanly qualities come from the fact that she knows how she needs to act towards men. She was so quick to like immediately see that this captain was like not going to listen to her, and her tone gets so soft. And I think it is passive aggressiveness, but I also think it's her kind of like lowering herself so that she seems like more approachable.
We have this backstory for her where she talks about like all of these terrible like exes that she's had.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder if she's the person like when she's in captain mode, where she is quite guarded because she knows that she has to be, and very calculated and that sort of thing. But then like the second that she's interested in someone, she's like, do you want to hear like everything about me?
Yeah.
And she just like talks with stuff like that. And I think that that's a very funny like aspect of her character, is that she is this incredible captain and stuff like that, but she just like is terrible at doing relationships because she's so pent up that she just like vomits out. Like,
and she's also so successful in her job that she doesn't have a lot of time or ability to just flirt with a guy. So it makes sense that she'd be so good at something and so good at manipulating people and reading people, but the moment that she actually likes someone, she gets kind of bad at.
Really love that.
That's very charming.
That's a really good segue, though, to what is your favorite Zheng moment on the show?
I have it written down. I think it's that moment where, I mean, all of them, but especially the one where she's kind of floundering to explain why she wants to keep Olu on the ship and everyone else on the ship. And Auntie's just kind of like, you just like him. And Zheng's like, no. And Auntie's like, it would be like against efficiency to keep them all here. And Zheng's like, no, he's helpful. He's stacking the scrolls. Like, he's doing what I told him to do. And I just think that like, to me is I think the thing that I'm having a hard time explaining is, to me, that really subverts a lot of normally we see like characters like her, often Asian characters, honestly, be like very like, relationships are bad and I hate relationships and they're antithetical to how hard I work. But I think like seeing Zheng be so open so quickly, like just immediately in love, is so funny and is kind of refreshing. I really like that trope. I feel like we see it a lot in like fan fiction. I feel like we don't actually see it a lot in actual media. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm watching the wrong media. But I feel I really love that about her. And I think, yeah.
Do we know? I just have a quick question. Moment. Do you guys have an opinion on when Zheng is actually being sincere in any moment? Because she is presented like as someone who can really drive people around and manipulate them. And you can see the voice that she takes when she talks to Steed, and you can see what her opinion is of Steed. You see her with Olu, and she's still doing something with him that's not 100%. And I'm just interested in thinking, like, what part of what do we ever see her in the show genuine, at least before the last episode, where it's really just her?
I think the break in my day conversation is very authentic. I think she's being authentic with Olu almost all of the time. I think that there are a few moments where her tone of voice kind of goes up. She has like a passive aggressive inflection, which is very funny to me. Naturally, like I think they kind of like, she almost, it's in that way, like, you know, like the, how are you doing? Like the kind of, I think you could argue at a few points that she infantilizes Olu and almost like once, but I also like, you don't see her enough to be like, oh, she wants what she wants out of Olu, and when Olu is not giving her what she wants, she like tosses him to the curb. There's not enough of that to even,
we didn't get
like,
enough. I mean, that's the thing, like, that's another thing about season 3 is it would have been really nice to get more about the relationship at any point, because you're right, we just did, there was such little time.
Yeah, but I could see a little bit of that. Like, I could see a little bit of her, like, kind of treating him like he's almost like a himbo, which is funny because she does call him smart. And I do believe that she thinks she actually says it. She says it twice, actually. She says it in the first episode where she's talking to Steed and Olu, and then she goes, that's because you're the smart one. Sorry, I just watched these episodes. And then also she says it again in the break in my day scene. One of the first things she says when she goes on the top of the boat with him is she says, you're smart and I think she says like, you're smart and you're kind. And so yeah, I can see like that, like a little bit bubble to the surface, but I also think it's the way that she speaks.
Yeah, I think she's naturally very guarded as well. So I think like she might not necessarily be being manipulative, but she is still kind of reluctant to sort of put all her cards on the table, even when she is trying to be like genuine with Olu. You know, the way that she delivers some of those lines, like the break in my day kind of line, it's almost like she's embarrassed to like have to admit that to him.
But she's still being playful in a genuine way.
Like she needs to be captain all the time, I feel. Like she is the closest to what the one thing that is interesting about the Izzy and Ed and Auntie and Zheng parallel is that she's positioned to be Ed in this metaphor.
This is like a little mini Ed Steed story that they're having, where she meets him and then
she's both, like kind of in a way. Like, which would have been cool in season 3 if Steed and Ed were still there. It would have been interesting to see how she kind of is the foil to the both of them. That is more organized and smarter than the both of them combined. Yeah. But I think some of the,
maybe they would have finally gone to China.
Maybe. I think the passive aggressive way that she talks is also attributed to what Randy says, and is also her being captain, like having to speak like she's the captain and having to always like have this tone that is calming.
Well, and I wasn't trying to say manipulative, like any judgment. More about
no.
That's how she's so successful. That's the only way she's been able to be successful in this kind of job. And she's run into these people over and over and over, and so she can read them and she knows what's going on. And since we didn't get a lot of her, she's just being a badass most of the time, which is great. But we don't really get a lot of moments where she's just being herself, or she's able, because she just doesn't have the opportunity to do that. And again, another thing where I just want more in season 3.
I didn't get to hear from Randy what Randy's favorite Zheng scene was.
I think it's definitely the part where she's like going through the red flag and like introducing like how they kind of work there. And then my memory's a little bit hazy, but like there's that. And then I think later on as well, she talks to that captain that they've kind of like taken over the ship of. And that kind of like general section where we find out like how she works is really cool to me, because like in a lot of like depictions of like Asians, and especially Chinese people specifically in like American media, we see like Asian like groups, I guess, being run in like quite a militant kind of way. It's that sort of thing of like, oh, you know, China, everybody has to, you know, be socially uniform and like follow their leader. And like that's very much the vibe that we get from like, you know, depictions of Chinese people. And I thought it was really cool that everybody on the red flag seems to enjoy being there. They seem to really respect
Mhm.
Zheng, and they seem to really like the way that she runs that ship. And I was like, oh, it's really cool that we're getting a glimpse into, you know, what piracy could actually look like if, you know, the captains weren't terrible people who abused their power. We're like, oh, okay, so we've actually got someone who, you know, values cohesion, but in a way that means everybody kind of gets to work on a ship that actually works really, really well, and everybody understands their place, and everybody kind of works together to make sure that they're all kind of like successful. And I also kind of like that she assigned roles to everybody kind of like based on the vibe that she was getting from them of like what they enjoyed, and that she was able to read that very easily and sort of go, you know, okay, Roach like off to the kitchens, and then, you know,
We
there doing like repairs and those sorts of things. And she sort of looks at Steed and
Steeds
it's like,
and towels.
yeah, towels. But I also liked actually the glimpse of potential that we got, where we had Steed there as almost like, you know, when they're talking to the captain and he's there with like all champers. I was like, that would be such a cool role for Steed as that kind of like, because remember that captain assumes that Steed is the captain first before we talk to him. And I'm like, that's so funny. Like, send him in first as kind of like that barrier of like, oh, here's like a familiar face, like here's a white man that you can like see, actually surprise, I'm the captain here, but you know, we've got him. Like,
I would love to see that done deliberately, for them to get like a whole action down and a really wonderful way to manipulate these people and take advantage of the fact that Steed's white and has those, you know, I would love that. That would be so funny, so cheeky. They would be a good team if Zheng could respect him and if he could earn her respect, which I don't think he has.
I would say no, not Zheng doesn't need to respect him. No, I think he needs to learn his place. If he could learn his place as someone beneath her, serve her well, then they could get ownership.
Yeah, because he's so good at being sort of like awkwardly disarming in those like first encounters. I'm like, as, you know, a kind of like valet even, or like just someone who kind of goes around with her, that could be such a cool role for him to inhabit, and he'd be so good at it as well.
Yeah. I think that's it. That's all. No, I agree. Everything you're saying, I agree with.
That's a good segue to Randy. What would you like to see Zheng do in season 3?
Be captain, like like I think that she would be. And interestingly, in all of the fan fiction that I write about Zheng that happens in a hypothetical season 3, I just like swap things around where she is captain. The other thing that I think that I write about a lot that happens to her in like a hypothetical season 3 is that she cuts her hair. Like, which I think is like...
Oh, the hair thing so bad.
Let's talk about the hair thing. Actually, I forgot to bring that up. But yeah, Randy, what are your thoughts on her hair?
I did my hair like her today.
You did.
Like, you know,
and you look wonderful.
Not that people can see it, but my hair is in like pigtails. I don't love it just because I think it looks ridiculous. And like, I can kind of understand like there being potentially reasoning behind it, as it being like a disarming thing of her kind of like leaning into like, you know, girlishness and not necessarily looking as like intimidating. But I just don't think that it reads particularly well.
Doesn't it kind of read more like animation almost?
Yeah.
An anime character that has, anime.
I don't know if it's an American read specifically, but I think that is a general perception of Asians in media. There's also like something called the purple hair streak in Asian characters. Please look it up. It's called the Asian hair streak in women, Asian women, and it's to like show they rebel. And it's all of these Asian women like lined up, and they all have like little purple streaks in their hair. And so it's kind of very similar with Asian women and pigtails, which is that like, I feel like maybe a white woman, you could say like it's a little disarming and it's a little bit like, but for like Asian women, I feel like there's an extra fetish to that. Like there's an extra fetish spin to it that I wouldn't necessarily is a thing that I really like or enjoy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can agree that like that Asian women are fetishized, and also that women, pigtails on women is an interesting thing. And I'm sorry that they have been ruined for little girls. I'm sorry. But like, I think that like it's sort of a hairstyle that comes with this stigma. And so I personally really don't like that they used it for her at all. I would also say that she should get a haircut.
What I was going to say is like, yes, because I hate her hair, but also because like, again, as a Chinese thing, it's like something that I guess like tends to be done at times of like great like crisis. Sometimes it's done in like mourning. Sometimes it's done to kind of like symbolize leaving like a past life behind. But like the hair thing is very much like a big deal. And so I think in a season 3, because she's lost like most of her fleet, you know, it's really significant for her what's happened here. And I think the gravity of what has happened doesn't really get time to settle because, you know, nothing in that last episode gets time to settle. And I think like showing the magnitude of what has happened to her visually would have been really cool. So in a season 3, I think she would have short hair. And I'd also kind of enjoy, this is like, again, something that I put in fan fiction set in that season 3, but I also enjoy the idea that they would go around and try and find like the survivors from that wreckage as well, because like there's no way that you would just like annihilate an entire fleet from, you know, the greatest like pirate captain ever. I just think that was like such a ridiculous thing to happen.
Yeah. I also feel like if she was off the ship, like a good chunk of the crew were probably not on that boat. Everything Randy said, and I think that the season should center Zheng. And I also think that, I mean, I love the dynamic between the garlic soup polycule. It gives me endless joy. That is the side of Twitter that I am on. I am like in the Izzy Canyon, but I am for sure in the garlic soup. All of my fic recommendations are just people to follow. And so I am like deeply in that side.
We need to do a garlic soup episode.
Oh my God.
And you should host it.
I shouldn't host it. Actually, it should be Nerdy and Campbell. It should not be me.
Okay.
Actually, they have been in it far longer than I. And I also think that the anchors of that is Jim and Olu. And that's not, I am happy being on the side of that conversation. But I think that for me, I think that like I would love to see kind of in a way that Randy just said, Zheng kind of like get into this kind of maybe like this pattern of like avenging. Like I do want to see it taken seriously. I would love this idea of her being in this revenge pattern and then Jim having to talk her down. I also love the idea of Jim and Zheng hating each other. It has already been squashed by episode 7. So unfortunately it would be a little bit of a rewrite, but like, I do love the idea of them hating each other, but that's only because I think they have so much in common. I also think that they could parallel Izzy and Steed. Like, I think that it's just such a interesting choice. I loved Jim's arc, and I think that's something that Jim could really relate to Zheng that maybe Olu might not be able to. And then Archie, of course, is like completely up in the air. I have my own snake cult lore, but it has nothing to do with the show. It's all made up. But I think I would really like to see, obviously, I feel I would love to see her kind of like break down and then have to kind of like be like, what is this ship like, in the sense of her being captain, like them being like, what does it take to run a ship, and like what do we have to do to make sure that, like, you know, it could be a funny one bottleneck episode where she's down for the count and that's because she's stressed and they have to kind of like fill in everything. I also really love Zheng and Roach. Sorry, not to bring Roach back in. I think they'd be best friends. I think they're the same person. Just because I think that they both will never say, I need a break. They'll never say that. They'll have to die. They need to die first. They have to physically collapse of exhaustion. And I think that, like, I think it's really funny. I think it would be really funny as a bit if they both tried to outdo each other. Like, they were both like, Zheng was like, oh, Roach, I made you a soup today. And then he was like, oh, well, that's funny because I found out your favorite cookies from Auntie. And it turns out I made those too. And then so they're just kind of in like a nice battle between each other. I think like that's fun. There's a lot of potential that I see with her and the crew. Alternatively, people I see her butting heads with hilariously.
And Molly, what would you like to see Zheng do in season 3?
I agree with everybody that I would like to see her avenge. I do believe, like, if her entire crew, how many ships did she have? An army of ships, of people,
countless.
Yeah, and countless ships. She should be avenging that. I love the symbolism of her cutting her hair, maybe cutting her hair on camera as a protest or something to whatever she's dealing with, or a way for her to process the loss. But I definitely can't imagine that they would kill everybody that were, she had just a fantastic fleet. The fleet was incredible. It was almost like that shot where they were showing all of the women pushing the ships across land. I mean, I felt like it was one of the most remarkable shots I've seen in any show ever. It felt magnificent. It felt so huge. So, ultimately, Our Flag Means Death is Ed and Steed's love story. So everyone else is still kind of in the background of that, and it would be still in the background of that. But I would love to see so much more about Zheng's backstory, about where she came from, about how she, accomplished everything she did. And she's just like stuck in this weird moment of her career where she's dealing with these like two idiots. And then she also falls in love. I just want more of that. And I want more of Steed just messing with her accidentally, because I like that dynamic between them. I love the dynamic.
Randy, what do you love to see Zheng do in Fics?
Actually, just briefly to carry on from what Molly was saying, I think it's interesting with Zheng because she's obviously spent an entire piracy career trying to build this fleet that kind of gets annihilated. And I think one of the things that I've been writing about in one of my fics is, will she want to rebuild? Is she in mentally in a place where she's going to start all over again and, build everything up from scratch, when we know that this kind of golden age of piracy is also kind of coming to an end as well. And so I think it's very interesting because what was the motivation for, conquering China in the first place? Why did she become a pirate? And from there as well, does she feel like she's able to start again when she's kind of, found these new people that she's hanging out with? She's found someone like Olu, who is very much not someone that I could see being, the partner or, the right hand of someone who's about to rebuild an entire piracy empire. It doesn't really feel like the show ends on that kind of a note. I really liked what Kelly was saying about it becoming a revenge narrative instead, which I thought was really cool. And love to see that in fan fiction. I haven't read a whole lot of fan fiction to do with Zheng just because a lot of it tends to be garlic soup.
A lot of it is garlic soup.
Yeah, a lot of it is garlic soup. And while I like talking headcanons, I love tweeting about it and talking to people on the internet about ideas and those sorts of things, because she's kind of my main reason that I would like to read fan fiction. I find it hard to engage because a lot of the time she's not the main focus. So I'm kind of
I've had a really hard time finding any. I had a hard time finding any where she was the main focus. I'm bad at looking at stuff on searching on AO3. I know that I probably don't have the best filters or something, but I was really trying to find more fics where she was the main character, and I couldn't find very many at all.
Well, I have a fic series called
It's
called Zheng-centric ficlets, and it's basically a bunch of little vignettes about parts of a hypothetical season 3 that I could see happening. A lot of it as well is her and Roach, which I think would be a really cool kind of that would just be such a cool friendship. I totally agree with you there. I think that a lot of the time the two of them would kind of be in this circle of them pointing their fingers at each other you're doing too much.
Yeah. I think that because in the way that we think about the show, clearly there is a main couple. It's Steed and it's Ed, and so I think building around that, and then even saying what I said before about Jim and Olu being the anchors, is that Zheng and Archie will always be the outliers in that conversation, which is why I love Archie Zheng as a pairing. But I always think that in all of the thruples that I ship, all the poly couples I ship, I think the ones that are least likely to get together are the ones that are the most interesting to me. I also love Fang Pete. I also love Stizzy. So I think to me,
I love Roach Izzy. I don't know, are they Rizzy? I love Roach Izzy.
Roach Izzy, yeah.
No, I love Frizzy too. Sorry, I'm gonna stop talking.
No,
Frenchie and Izzy.
Frenchie and Izzy are some of my favorite
Yes.
Because Frenchie just ends up just being so funny and just kind of then Izzy kind of laughs. And he gets to hang out with like a hot guy that's also funny, and he doesn't have all the baggage like he has with Ed.
Yeah,
I love it. It makes me very happy.
He has a lot of baggage. I think he doesn't talk about it, and I think that's what makes him such a good parallel to Ed, is because I think Frenchie is like three days away from being an Ed.
Some I have like weird headcanon sometimes where I'm like, maybe Frenchie actually is from some nobility. And that's why he knows I've spent time with these people, in service, but maybe he's lying about being in service. Maybe he's also just like Steed. Maybe he's a minor prince. I don't know. But sometimes I like to imagine that he's just pulling the wool over everybody's eyes.
Yeah. Sorry, I will go on.
Yeah, we went off on a tangent
forever.
Sorry.
I think I agree that like it's difficult to find, and we'll go into that question later with the like fan fiction question, but like it's also thirdly, I will third that it was very difficult to find Zheng-centered fics, just because, and for that reason, I believe, not to say that like I want there to be less Jim and Olu, because I love the two of them so much, but I think that. But
I do see Zheng and Archie getting along really well. Archie just wants to have fun, man.
I just like
Archie
the idea
is a
of
lot of
Archie
fun, wants to have
every
fun.
person that she comes across, and I think it would be fun to see Zheng baffled.
Oh, you know what else would be really funny? Because there's like a whole thing, I think, and this has happened to a lot of the other people that like our family friends, like, other people from the Asian community, is when like you grow up in quite a conservative and like academically focused Asian family, and then you go off to like university and stuff like that, and you like meet people who are like a lot more chill, and like everyone that I know just goes off on an absolute like crazy bender because they're just like, oh my God, I have freedom for the first time in my life. And I just think it would be really funny to have like Zheng be like, you know what, I have like no responsibilities now because like what the fuck has happened to my entire fleet, and she just like goes on the craziest like hangover style.
I love that
adventure.
Zheng's Rumspringer.
And I also love people coping with grief in really unhealthy ways. Let's just see what happens when she lets loose. She's going through the 5 stages of grief: bargaining, denial, depression, acceptance.
Yeah, like what's her version of Ed in the writing songs in the robe?
Depression.
Like what does that look? Yeah, what is her version of a depression robe? Or like, again, cutting her hair,
cake
cut your hair after breakup. Being upset
and
about
like
stuff.
When she's got
funny.
people like Archie around, like Archie would be the worst like enabler.
Yeah,
that would be really funny. I would love to see her. Yeah, I would love to see her breaking down and not being in control and just being like, fuck it, everybody's fucking dead. What am I going to do with my life? Yeah. And just having these like weird moments. And again, I still think of this as like a chapter in her life, a chapter in her story. And because she's not the main character of this story, but man, it would be so cool to see her kind of fucking lose it, just in a fun, funny, weird, sweet way. And she deserves a break.
Sure, her getting tattoos is really interesting to me as a way of coping. Her cake topper moment, whatever that is, what is her physical thing that she's interacting with? Does she go on a shopping spree with Steed and decide to do a whole wardrobe fashion makeover? Does she just start wearing pink all the time?
I think it's really funny that everyone's going positive, because I'm very like, oh, she would fist fight Jim. She would get in a physical fight with him.
Or she's going to go both.
Something really dumb.
No, she'll be high and low, man. She'll go all over.
Or is she just going to give up piracy and become a cowboy? And she's like, guess what, guys? I'm a cowboy now. She like gets revenge on her people. And then she's like, I'm going to go through a momentary like 2-episode arc where I'm a cowboy.
Yeah.
Is that where Calico Jack comes back?
Yeah, and then she meets Calico Jack and has a really weird fling with him.
Weird sexual, like a psychosexual thing between them.
I do think that that's interesting. Sorry, I don't know if we ever brought this up. I always get it. I always am very interested when
I've never seen those two together. It never occurred to me to think of Calico Jack and Zheng together, but I think that would be fucking funny and kind of sexy
as a way of coping with grief.
Yeah,
as an
bottoming out.
Calico Jack.
I think it's interesting that she's not really seen as queer but like I really want her to be queer.
Oh, she's queer. I think. Where does everyone stand on her queerness? I think she's definitely like bi.
I think she is, but I think
pan.
they try and establish that she says guys. She says like she's ex guys.
Oh,
whatever that she's been with.
I personally actually think it's really funny if she's like the only token straight on the
Stop.
That's true.
I love that. I think people say that about Archie too. People are like, Archie is a lesbian except Olu.
Yeah.
And I feel like Zheng would be the same.
Yeah, she's the token straight but queer polycule.
Yeah, except for the garlic. Yeah, except for the garlic.
Yeah.
What roles would you guys like to see Rubo play in the future?
I want to see her in theater. Anything in theater that she can do. I would love to see her in theater. I think it's so funny. Her Instagram stories get me every time. She's so cerebral. She's so NYU. It's the funniest thing in the entire world. I love her so much.
I love like those posts where it's like a mirror selfie, but then like an essay on like the cosmic meaning of the universe underneath it. I'm like, slay, so true, bestie.
The first thing I ever saw her in, and I didn't realize this until after the fact, was she was in Broad City, and she played this like ditzy, dizzy, falling on her ass, drunk party girl that was waiting in line at like Magnolia Bakery, and she was just like, "Oh hi, oh what you doing?" And she was like doing all this stuff, and she was just like a memorable idiot, just a total idiot. And then later I found out that was her in this show. And I was like, I can't believe that's the same person. So I would love to see her do some more broad comedy, man. I would love it.
She did.
Check it out.
Yeah, I think she's so funny. And she is just such a like her facial like expressions, mobility, whatever. Like she just does like visual comedy so well.
Yeah. I like she did a Sherlock Holmes thing, right?
Yeah, I did.
From like, early 1900s detective thing. If she were in that, I'd be in. I keep going back to Western, put her in a Western, I'm in. Put her in a
absolutely
fairy princess riding a unicorn, I'm in.
I want her as a lead, like a romantic lead. I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love to see her in a Broadway play that deconstructs the idea of a romantic comedy where she is playing the lead who is self-actualizing in the entire I feel like that would be her bread and butter. I really do feel there are so many people like the finding out that everybody did theater. Did we all know here that Matthew Marr originated the role of Homer in the Mr. Burns play, the experimental theater piece that everybody and their mother does? Like, if you were an experimental theater company and you have not done Mr. Burns, then you were not an experimental theater company, and he originated the role, and that blows my mind every time I think about it.
I need to know more about your background.
Wow.
Kelly, you seem like you went deep in theater, and I want to know more about that because I was in experimental theater in New York. What?
I'm a theatrical set designer is my
okay.
is my
I
job.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was an actor in New York.
If somebody is a theater actor. Tell more. Maybe not now, but
have you ever Big Art Group? They're an experimental theater company that's really good, and they have. But that was years ago. But I was in the Fringe Festival, but like the New York Festival before 9/11. And we did some musicals and stuff. Yeah, so I was a theater major, and I was in New York for a while. And
yeah, you guys are best
friends. But no, I just want to know more about that because when you're talking about that kind of like when you're really going deep into it, that's like a whole world I haven't thought about in years. But I love it.
I'm not aware of what Mr. Burns is outside of the
Simpsons. That's what I was trying to say.
So it's a story, if I can remember it right. The world has ended, and the only physical media that exists is the Simpsons episode of Mr. Burns. And so the whole show is just like 4 actors who have like more than that maybe, who have like recreated the episode of Mr. Burns, but in a very post-apocalyptic way. And Matthew Marr, who plays Black Pete, played the original Homer. So I think that they go by the character names from The Simpsons. And so he played like the Homer, or the man who is pretending to be Homer. And I don't know much beyond it. All I know is that every experimental theater company in Philadelphia, I'm in Philadelphia, has done Mr. Burns.
Wow.
So I'm a big fan of all of them, all of the theater guys. Khan, who has a nomination for Best Supporting Actor, Tony Award.
Yeah. Cool.
Nathan. Bode, who dropped out of theater school and did. Yeah, I'm so interested in all of their theatrical backgrounds. Vigo's doing a lot with theater right now also.
Yeah. So Fic Recs, drop your Fic Recs. Randy, go with you and feel free to wreck your own because you have
Wreck your own.
such great work. You have like 800 fics that you've written, and
too many fics.
A genius.
There's the Zheng-centric like fic collection, which is like a whole bunch of just like vignettes of her. And then there's one that's kind of been on the back burner for a little while, but I've been meaning to pick it back up again, called Cardboard Pirates, which is like, the title actually comes from the Scorsese film Casino, where at the very end, you know, this end of like, you know, the mob guys being in control of the casinos, and they talk about like kids playing cardboard pirates in like these new casinos where you don't have that kind of a presence. And I'm like, that actually reminds me like so much of what I'd hoped the ending of Our Flag Means Death would have been, you know, this idea of like the end of piracy and sort of reflecting on, you know, the highs and lows of like, you know, you were at the top of the world, you were in charge of like the high seas and that sort of a thing. But then like when your time is up, like what do? You're still there. And that fic is very much about the perspective of like Roach and Zheng in that kind of a situation where they're like, well, do we rebuild, or do we like, how do we move on from what's happened here? Which is like things that I'm very interested in when it comes to the two of them. And also like interestingly as well about, because Zheng is from Guangdong, which means like being from the south of China. A lot of people have mentioned stuff about like, lol, it would be so funny because Steed like can't eat spicy food, but then like finally Roach can make spicy food like now that he's on the red flag. No, he can't, because people in the south of China don't eat spicy food. So like, so if he tried that, like he would just obliterate Zheng, which is really funny to me because it's like, oh, don't Asians eat spice? Like not from that area, sorry. But yeah, it is kind of like my thoughts on what like a hypothetical season 3 would look like if they were the main characters and they sort of left, you know, Steed and Ed behind at the murder shack.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, which they kind of do to themselves, which is an interesting framing for season 3. I think is one of my interesting questions. Is would it be about them or would it be about the crew, and what do they decide?
So, Molly, Fic Rec?
I just want to go back to, this is not on topic here, but I love a good gentle beard, and I like it when it's kind of expansive and you get to see a lot more fun with a lot of different characters. And so I love Zuckerbaby1, who wrote Well, Nobody's Perfect, which is based on Some Like It Hot. And it's really funny and it's really charming. And it's like some fun combos, like Ed and Frenchie are on the run from like gangsters. And then they end up in this like drag company Steed runs. And so Steed is kind of like the stand-in for Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot. And Frenchie has a little thing with Izzy. It's really charming. It's really funny. And I just think it's very well written. So I want to be in like a good mood for the holidays. And it's not specifically Christmassy, but it has like a classic vibe to it. So I would definitely recommend that.
And Kelly, Fic Recs?
I just wrote anything by Oluwande's Oranges and Tragically Nerdy on Twitter / also on Blue Sky. They are literally who I feel founded the whole garlic soup polycule. They do the week also. They do the garlic polycule week, which I partook in. And so I will say, like, coming back to that conversation, like a lot of fics are Jim and Olu centric, but I think going into that playlist, you will find of fics from AO3. I don't have a AO3 and I should. There is because I've lost a lot of fics that I like because I just didn't take a screenshot, or it's a screenshot I took 6 months ago. And so anything by
I have like hundreds and hundreds of tabs that were on my phone and they all just disappeared the other day. So it's just like that was like my entire way of tracking fics that I wanted to read. And I was like Googling like, how do I fix this? And it's not fixable, but that's okay. You know, you got to burn it down, start again.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of, I don't know how much I feel. I'm kind of with Randy on like, I am much more a fan of things that happen like in universe. I want to see more things that happens in universe to her, because like I do feel like she isn't centered in a lot of fics, because then it kind of like becomes more her and Olu, which like I love, but also like I do sometimes like wish she was her own character in the same way that like I love Fang to be his own character or Ivan to be his own character. And so, yeah, I mean, anything by Randy, I'll read anything by Randy.
Yeah.
So Randy does a really good job, I think. Sorry, this is going to be a compliment for Nato.
Yeah, I was going to say Randy is the author name. Is it just Randy?
Bong Bing
No,
Bong.
it's Bong Bing Bong.
Bong Bing Bong? I'm sure
Randy
I've read
is, like,
some of the
so
stuff
good
you've
at-
written.
Probably. It's like the writing is so world expansive and so thoughtful. I love Roach and the Aunties just because I feel like even though Zheng is Zheng in the fic? Zheng in the
She's kind of in it, but it's more about the crew.
more it's about the environment that she's cultivated, which I think is something that you can't say about Steed. Like I think, or rather, I have a hard time. Sorry, I was going to be mean to him, so I didn't want to say it. But like, I think I have a hard time sometimes seeing the ability to kind of like create a community. Sometimes I feel like he just got lucky because he got a lot of really cool people in his crew. And I think that like for Zheng specifically, I feel like her and Auntie did a lot to cultivate what they had. And I think that Randy does a really good job extending and building it without this idea of like, you know, it is all about Zheng and Olu, which like for me it is, but I can also understand like, you know, and so I really like also all of the Rizzy stuff is great. Also, if you want to go for Rizzy because Rizzy is all over Randy's account, obviously, because Randy is.
Yeah, I wrote my 100th Rizzy fic the other day.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's amazing.
Pretty crazy.
I mean, I'm like it, like you and Irene like steer that boat and I'm just along for the ride and I love being there. So
yeah, I love Roach.
Yeah.
He's just such I sort of wished it because like a lot of what made like the Roach headcanons great was Samba like just dropping random like all over social media. And I'm like, I kind of wish that we had that for Zheng, but it's fine. We can
I do too. I think I wish people would ask more questions at panels about the garlic soup polycule. I feel like there isn't enough. I feel like everyone asks, obviously, the general beard questions well, actually, no, I don't even think that's true. It's a lot of the same, what would your drag persona be? Which I feel like I should come up with the list of answers so that we don't ask that question anymore. But I would really like to know a lot more about like how Vico feels about that. Like how Nathan feels Lucius did on the ship, like how Lucius felt about the ship.
Like the thought that was put into developing the characters. Because I mean, I know that in season 1, I think they did a little bit more of like allowing the actors to have like more input into their characters. I know that Samba had like quite a lot of input into like the way that
especially aesthetically, like all of that, the tattoos and everything and the protective jewelry also.
So this is a good point to wrap things up. Randy, what are you working on? What are you looking forward to?
So at the moment I've outlined this maybe like 5 times in the last like 6 months, but I'm really into this idea of a garlic soup Western. I think that Jim's character arc in season 1 was very much that of like desperado Robert Rodriguez kind of like vibe. And I'm kind of sad that they didn't do anything with that in season 2. So I'm like, no, we're taking it back. Sorry about all of your character growth, but I'm undoing all of it. We're going back to the beginning. So it's this like idea of a Western where, because like in that scene where we see Jim's father being killed, like they have a brother. And so I was like, well, I'm going to write a Western where they go back to see if they can find their brother. And then I was like, well, this could be a really good opportunity to like set it in that hypothetical season 3 time as well. So I can have like Zheng there and Archie and have them with Olu and just like an opportunity to like sandbox them a little bit away from the rest of the crew. So it's just like the 4 of them. So that's my current project.
Ooh, that sounds.
I'm so interested to finally like see your takes on the garlic soup. I'm so ready. I feel like I've won something. I feel like I won. I'm so excited.
Kelly, what are you working on? What are you looking forward to?
Not anything as important as that is to me. I'm working on a comic that I've been working on for honestly way too long. I started writing it in February and I just finished the scripts, and it's because I'm writing it as actual TV scripts before I do the comic, so that if I wanted to submit them for anything I could.
Is that the thing you posted on Blue Sky?
Thing I just keep talking about. Yeah, with all the episode names. Those are all,
the episode names.
Yeah, those are all new episode names that I came up with for the 8 episodes. And I was very proud.
Okay, because I was looking at that. I was like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about like, did you uncover the actual original scripts in season 2 or what? But no, okay, cool.
No, those are the new names that I made for the scripts, and some of them. I mean, I the way that I describe this comic is that it is like using theater terms, it's like a revival. It would not exist without the second season. And that's kind of how I'm proposing it, because I feel like I a lot of the perceptions I'm going to get for it, like I've made a lot of decisions. I have a lot of feelings. I've made a lot of decisions based on those feelings. I also want it to be canon. I said that my only goal with the comic is to prove that Steady Hand's real. That's the only goal of the comic. And so, but like the idea is that it could happen in a TV season. Like it could have happened in the second season, but like my goal is to not like, I don't have any feelings towards like just them by them, like Jen Beard by themselves. I will say the only really aggressive opinion I have is I don't think Izzy should have died. That's a really aggressive opinion I have that's like, second, point 1, Steady Hand's real. Point 2, Izzy should not have died. So
I don't know if that's a very aggressive opinion, honestly. I mean,
I feel very aggressive. I know it feels.
Yeah, it's hard to read into it because there's a lot of responses. But I'm one of those people who loved Izzy from the start, and I loved Izzy's growth in season 2, and I'm not like mad about his death. I didn't take it the way a lot of people did, but I still don't think he should have died.
Yeah,
I don't like that was the decision, even though I know it was kind of like justified in sort of a Star Wars kind of third act thing. Anyway, I don't want to get into it, but I do agree. I kind of don't want him. I don't think he died.
Well, let's just say if season 3 doesn't begin.
Also, I don't like the way he was killed.
Is he crawling out of the grave, or is he not turning out not to be dead? Then I also don't think that that's actually cool, because I think it puts so many people through so much stress and so much upset that if he wasn't actually dead, it feels like a slap in the face of people that were really upset that he died. No, we could.
And also, why kill him?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm happy with anything. I just want to have a season 3.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever, baby.
Yeah, I think to explain the tone, I think that is the tone of the comic. It's also to highlight how like the supporting characters could have really helped the narrative of Ed, Steed, and Izzy. I rarely say their 3 names. I just say Steady Hands. It could like prove that narrative. It also brings back Fang and Roach in a really important way, but that's because I'm really biased towards Roach and Fang.
Yes.
They're my favorite rare pair. They're my other favorite rare pair.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that is like the gist of the comic, and that's the reason that I am currently living and breathing. So let's hope that it doesn't. I scheduled it out, and the schedule says that this comic will take me 2 years. So we'll see what.
Yay! I'm so excited to see how that turns out. And Molly, what are you working on? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I am working on that podcast with my friend Patrick, and he's an American historian, and we're talking about all the shit that's going on in the world, and I'm freaked out, so we call it Unfreak Me Out. And I'll be posting that on my Smurf Smoo Blue Sky account. That's the only fandom account I have, really. So follow me there, and I have a lot of opinions about all kinds of things. But yeah, I just want to. It's been a hard time for a lot of people, and I just want to say, let's just keep diving into stuff we love, and really being creative and making stuff, and just being with people we care about, and just really making our lives worth it right now. And that's what I'm looking forward to, is just really embracing the holidays and just being with people I care about and encouraging everyone else that's doing all sorts of cool shit. Just do it.
And this is Our Flag Means Fanfiction. Follow us on Instagram at Our Flag Means Fanfiction, all one word. Keep on doing creations, being cringe, and committing crime.